Up next, we have 4D Medical, which is listing on the ASX this Friday, the 7th of August. 4D Medical is a Melbourne-based software tech company focused on creating a step change in the capacity of physicians to diagnose and manage patients with diseases of the lung. Very topical at the moment, 4D Medical is focused on commercialising its four-dimensional xray lung imaging technology, which utilises proven patented algorithms to convert X-ray images into quantitative scan data. Unlike existing respiratory diagnostic procedures, xray technology provides a non-invasive way of understanding regional lung motion and airflow in real time. The software as a service business model offers hospitals access to the tech without the traditional issues of hardware integration, capex, additional staff, or retraining. 4D Medical's advancement in respiratory diagnostic technology is expected to result in improved patient outcomes, early intervention leading to improved healthcare outcomes with reduced costs of care. Today's conference is, of course, streamed using the Shogun 7, which is a product of ASX-listed company Atomos. The Shogun 7 delivers mind-blowing HDR monitoring, recording and playback, and streamless multi-camera switching, which you'll see in action in the upcoming live stream. We're joined today by 4D Medical's Andreas Fouras. He is the CEO and the CTO of 4D Medical. He left full-time academic research in 2013 to form 4DX, which would later be rebranded as 4D Medical. In 6 short years, Andreas has taken XV technology through benchtop, preclinical and clinical validation, building 4D Medical into a world-class company with strong IP growth, a global presence across 3 continents, millions in revenue, and multiple million-dollar grant awards across countries. Most recently, they were the prestigious MRFF Frontier Health and Medical Research Program recipient. Over to you, Andreas.
Thanks, Laura. And it is really very exciting to be giving this presentation, especially this week, the week of our IPO. I'll just, we can take this executive summary here as read. The core of 4D Medical is our XV technology, and that technology offers a globally unique lung imaging solution that addresses an incredibly large market with significant unmet need. So if we talk about that market in some detail. Around the world, there's over 300 million procedures per year for lung diagnostic testing, and which totals a spend of in excess of $31 billion per year. And in particular, in the US market, which while it only may have about 5% of the world's population, delivers about 70 million lung testing procedures per year, or a 13.7 billion lung testing market. Now, out of that market, 99% of all of the lung diagnostic tests performed each year are made up of these 4 technologies: spirometry, X-ray, CT, which make up 98%, and then with 1% of the market, nuclear medicine. Pulmonary function testing was invented in the middle of the 1800s, around the 1840s, 1850s, and still represents over 15% of the US market for lung testing by number. This test, whereby you blow into a tube and it measures how much air comes out of your lungs. It measures your lungs' functional capacity, how they work, as opposed to the imaging technologies which typically measure how your lungs look. So this is a significant advantage, which is why such an old technology still has some decent market share. And when delivered in the hospital setting, costs around about $750 per test. So it's a relatively expensive and time-consuming test. However, while it does measure how your lungs work, you're breathing through your mouth into just one single tube. So everything about your lungs is aggregated into one single set of numbers. That's why we call this test one-dimensional. And it means if part of your lungs are below average and part of your lungs are above average, you simply get an average score from this test. And that means that you don't get early warning that disease is coming, which is exactly what you want from a lung diagnostic test. X-ray technology, also invented in the 1800s, this time in the 1890s. works in a lot of ways is completely the opposite of pulmonary function testing. For X-ray, you take a deep breath in, you hold still, and you get this two-dimensional image of your lungs. Now, because that image is two-dimensional, the complexity of your lungs can once again be hidden. Something is behind your ribs, behind your spine, behind your heart. It can easily be missed in an X-ray. And additionally, in the X-ray, as I said, you're not breathing, your lungs aren't functioning. So it's just simply the appearance of your lungs rather than their function. So while chest X-ray occupies more than half of the 66% of all the procedures by number, at only $120 per scan, it represents much smaller than that in terms of the economic size. Its economic size in the market. Because of the fact that your lungs are flattened in the image and not breathing, the clinical value of X-ray is really quite limited. And then we have, so as a result, really because of that clinical limitation, the only main reason that X-ray is used is because, number one, it can be used to screen for more expensive and more invasive testing. Or also, it's also quite commonly used because X-ray equipment is everywhere. It's very commonly found, it's readily available in the hospital system, and also quite importantly, when someone wants to use it, it's usually not busy, it's ready and available to be used at that moment. Often, when an X-ray is not sufficient, someone will go to CT, which has about 15% market share, although at about $500 per scan, once again, much bigger than that, bigger than 15% share by its economic impact. A CT scanner works by taking hundreds of X-rays around a patient as they lay in the system, once again holding their breath, to create now a three-dimensional image of your lungs. That three-dimensional image makes it very much more difficult for small things to be missed that might be missed in an X-ray. So doctors are much happier with that. However, between the combination of the very substantial radiation at 70 times the radiation of an X-ray and 4 times the price, in combination with the fact that you're not breathing, that there's no functional information, that's just simply an image of your lung structure, once again CT falls short in delivering. Nuclear medicine, which as I said occupies about 1% market share in the United States, is a very sophisticated imaging procedure that, unlike the other two imaging procedures, allows the patient to breathe through the testing. And so there is a functional component. It measures, particularly through a scan called a VQ scan, can measure both the blood flow and the airflow throughout somebody's lungs. That's substantially more richer information than you get from the other imaging procedures because of that functional component. However, limitations from the FDA, the very high cost of the scan, in excess of $1,500 per test, and the fact that 2 amounts of radiation, so inhaled radiation and injected radiation, are required to perform this test, mean the significant logistical overlays at the hospital, which in combination with the cost do reduce the use case down to that 1%. Now I'd like to introduce you to xV technology, the flagship product for 4D Medical. And you can see from the moving image on the screen, this video of an actual xV scan, you can see why we're called 4D Medical. The scan is in fact 4-dimensional in nature. So that's the 3D structure of the lungs, provides the first 3 dimensions, and the 4th dimension is time, or the phase of the breath. As you breathe, this scan measures exactly how much air is flowing through each part of your lungs as you take that breath. And you can see each point of colour on this image is a measurement of that airflow. Our technology is globally unique in that it is the only technology offering this capability. In addition to that, we're offering this technology as a software as a service offering. So our scanner is virtual. A patient goes into a hospital, uses the existing X-ray equipment which is already there. A very short imaging sequence of 20 seconds is acquired. That is then sent to us in the cloud where the analysis is performed to create an image just like the one that you're looking at now. This globally unique offering really puts us in an exciting position. When doctors see this scan, they get incredibly excited, and when they learn that it's offered virtually as a software as a service offering, their level of excitement increases. So let's have a look here at just one slice of the four-dimensional scan for two patients with healthy lung and with two subjects, one with a healthy lung and another with a diseased lung. In the healthy lung, we can see that the lung is nice and uniform. There is always pretty much the same amount of air in all parts of the lung as the healthy lung breathes. However, in the diseased lung, we can see a whole bunch of differences. They can be very quickly seen. And when doctors see that when they see that in 10 seconds they can see these three things in this diseased lung that allow them to differentiate to the healthy lung, their level of excitement continues to grow. So we can see in the bottom of the lung a region of very substantial defect, so where there's hardly any air getting into that part of the lung. If we move up to the tip, the apex of that lung, we can see a region that in some phases of the breath it looks quite normal, it looks evenly ventilated with the rest. But in other phases we can see that the lung is not evenly ventilated. This is a very subtle and very early stage disease that I believe could only be detected using XV technology. Also, if we look on the right-hand side, we can see an area of the lung that's being filled more than the rest. This is compensating, it's working hard, and it's being put in under pressure as a result of the disease in the other areas. So just to summarise from a technological point of view, there are three products which between them occupy 98% share of a $13.7 billion US market, or globally $31 billion market. These three products have their part of the share of the market because of their unique capabilities. Spirometry has its part of the market because it measures airflow. Well, XV technology also measures airflow. In fact, rather than measuring it in 1D like spirometry, it measures it in four dimensions. X-ray has its share of the market because it's cheap, it's readily available, the equipment is free when you need it, and the level of radiation is very low. Well, in fact, XV also uses that exact same equipment, so we leverage those same capabilities into our offering. Finally, CT has its share of the market because it's offering rich three-dimensional information about the structure of the lung. Well, in fact, XV technology offers four-dimensional information of the lung's function. So in fact, we've taken the core capabilities of each of these three products, which allows them to have 98% of the market share, and combine them into one super product that has their advantages but leaves their disadvantages behind. You don't have to take it from me. We have some really fantastic supporters on board with the technology. I won't read you these testimonials, but as you can see, these two gentlemen are leaders in Australia in terms of understanding lung function and in terms of understanding the medical technology market. And their support is incredibly comforting to myself and to the business. This technology was first invented by me in 2005 when I was a researcher at Monash University. And over the past 15 years, you can see that we've successfully passed through validation hurdle after validation hurdle, showing the technology, showing that it works in the laboratory, showing that it works in the preclinical setting, and finally showing that it works in the clinical setting with successful clinical trial. And of course, the biggest validation of all from the FDA in May of this year. Over that 15-year period, we've had somewhere in the ballpark of 300 person-years worth of effort injected into the development of this technology. So I think a really very substantial amount of investment being made. But with that investment now in place, with FDA clearance behind us, we have, as I said, we are able to leverage both the benefits of a software business model or a software as a service business model in combination with a very substantial and very important lung healthcare market. And I think we can agree that today our understanding of just how important that lung healthcare market has never been firmer. We also add some extra sauce to that SaaS business model, for example, by using a third-party supplier of installation capability. So we can roll out using this third-party supplier, and in fact they have the capability to do that installation in less than a week without even visiting the site. The costs that are involved in doing that upfront are borne by the company, so that for our customers, the very first scan that they do, that cost of that scan is the cost of delivering it. And so for us, we have a sticker price of $175 for a scan in the US market, and that $175 is all that first scan costs that customer. Once again, encouraging that rapid uptake and fast take-up of the product. We're creating a platform that allows us to layer additional products on top of it, and by using a third-party supplier for our cloud provision, at the moment we're using Microsoft Azure as our cloud platform. That gives us infinite scalability. They could deliver every scan around the planet tomorrow. We've also worked really hard in terms of building a workflow which is completely seamless with regards to what the standard workflow is in the hospital setting. So there's very little, if anything, change in terms of the way the hospital and the doctors operate in terms of bringing in 4DMedical's XV technology into their clinical workflow. The doctor, the pulmonologist in the United States, the respiratory specialist in Australia, would prescribe the XV scan. The patient would then go in that clinic off to radiology, where the X-ray imaging would be performed. It takes just a few minutes. It's 20 seconds worth of imaging, just takes 5 minutes or less to do that, delivering a radiation dose of 2 times that of a standard chest X-ray. So that's 35 times less than a standard CT. Those images, as is normal practice at a hospital, are automatically streamed off from the instrument, the X-ray instrument where the images are required, off to the PACS in radiology where those images would then be stored. Our software then sees the arrival of those images on the PACS without any human interaction, streams those images up to the cloud where our software automatically creates the videos and a 9-page report which can then be sent back to the hospital, once again without any human hands touching the data, can go back to the goes back to the PACS, where it's then embedded back in the patient's electronic medical record. The radiologist can sign off on that report. It goes back to the patient and the doctor. So there are no additional places where human hands touch these scans as opposed to the standard hospital workflow. So there's not a single additional click of a mouse, nice and easy for the doctors, convenient for them, and allows them once again to support that rapid take-up. We're incredibly excited about not only our first product, which measures airflow everywhere in the lungs, but we're now in the process of proving out to be able to roll out a product which also allows us to measure blood flow. Initially, we'll be measuring blood flow in the lungs, but then there'll be the capability to extend that out to the heart and to the rest of the body. This is really very exciting. It allows us, if you can measure both airflow and blood flow in the lungs, that gives a complete end-to-end offering. Also opens up some very premium ends of the market, for example, allowing us to compete directly head-to-head with the VQ scan, which, as I said, is a very premium priced product. That also allows us to get into measuring some very expensive diseases, such as pulmonary hypertension and pulmonary embolism. We see an opportunity to, with very significant margins, that with the opportunity to get up to margins as high as 90% or higher on our offering, and dealing in the United States, a $13.7 billion market. So in order to be able to deliver, as soon as we start delivering that kind of technology, that kind of business result, we know that other companies will be looking to compete with us immediately. So we've been working from the very beginning, from the first day we founded 4DMedical, then 4DX, in terms of digging ourselves the deepest and widest moat possible. I spoke before about in the ballpark of 300 person years worth of R&D, worth of development that's gone into this technology. That would be, so if a company wanted to compete with us and they had, let's say, the limitless funds, they could put 100 engineers onto developing this technology. You know, if it took them a similar amount of time, that would still be several years of R&D to get a product coming out. They would then have to compete with very extensive and comprehensive patent protection. So we now have 43 patents with 15 granted. That would undoubtedly slow down a competitor. They would then have to, validate in the clinic. We have over 80 papers now scientific papers published and in the clinical literature. So if a competitor was able to rapidly develop the technology somehow avoid the patents, conduct dozens and dozens of studies to publish in the literature, they'd still have to be cleared by the FDA, and by the time they got through with all of that, they would come up against our product number 2, product number 3, and so on. So we think at this point in time, our barriers to entry are really very strong. Very, very pleased with the strength of our board and our management team. We have Bruce Rathie, long-time director at PolyNovo, on the board, myself as managing director, Lil Bianchi, who has extensive experience in software and software as a service, Dr. Robert Figlin from the United States, who is head of oncology for all Cedars-Sinai sites, Lucia Guthrie, founding CEO of LBT, Julian Sutton, actuary, John Livingston, founder of Lake Imaging, now IDT on the Australian Stock Exchange, and Heath Lee, a long-time entrepreneur and accountant. Also on our advisory board, we have Dr. Sam Huppert, founding CEO of ProMedicus, Dr. Ray Kasheri, until recently chief at St. Joe's, part of one of the largest healthcare chains in the west of the United States, and just recently added Professor Bruce Thompson to our advisory board, who is currently serving as president of the ATS, Australia's peak body group for lung specialists in Australia and New Zealand. I won't go through the incredible skills and experience and education of our executive team, but our executive team is peerless, they are fantastic, and also incredibly dedicated to the company. Really fantastic supporters, and every one of them has invested into the company. Typically in healthcare, there are basically two economic models for talking to a customer to entice them to be to engage with a company and your product. That is either that you have a generic product, so a product which is cheaper, delivers very similar things to other products in the market, but is less expensive, or something which offers a higher outcome to the doctors or to the patients, but is substantially more expensive. We're offering with xray technology something which is the very rare offering, something we believe we can show is both superior to the products in the marketplace and is going to be offered significantly cheaper. So if we talk about the economics, if we add $120 per scan for the X-ray imaging plus $175 for the cost of delivering our scan, that's $195, which is approximately $295 in total. My apologies. Approximately half the cost of a CT, or approximately a third of the cost of pulmonary function testing. So a half or a third of the cost of its main competitors. Additionally, we can show that we provide richer data, which provides better information to doctors. And we know that with better information, doctors can make better decisions, and those better decisions lead to better patient outcomes. And finally, we can do all of that in a way that's very easy for the hospital to become engaged through the fact that we have no capex, we charge nothing upfront to the hospital, and that, as I said before, everything is seamlessly integrated with the hospital's current offering. Once again, the market opportunity, particularly in the US, which will be our first target market with our FDA clearance, we have really very significant opportunities, and in fact about 2% of this US market would result in in excess of $250 million of revenue for the company. And as I said, with confidence that we could be delivering that with a gross margin in the ballpark of 90%. Now, take you through in detail the stages of our commercialization strategy. Now here it's important to see that stage one has already been completed. And in that stage one, we have already placed our technology in the hands of the best hospitals in the United States. We have the opinion leaders there, these KOLs in those hospitals already advocating and supporting the rollout of our technology. And we've published, as I said before now, over 80 scientific publications to amplify that message into the marketplace. Now we're well into stage two. We have our pre-launch pilot. whereby we will be rolling out the product front to back over about a 6-week period so that we can test it out and the market can see the product before we do our complete commercial launch. And our priority targets for that will be taken from hospitals where there is either key opinion leaders or those hospitals are part of a larger network. So that means once we're selling product into that hospital, we can then expand within that network. The biggest example of this is the Department of Veterans Affairs, or in the US called just the VA. The VA is the largest integrated healthcare provider in the United States and is about the same size as healthcare in Australia in its totality. From stage 2, then that positions us very nicely to expand rather rapidly in terms of the volume of sales. That is our foothold. From that foothold, we can expand out, we can expand across those networks. At the same time, by delivering clinical trial evidence into the marketplace, not only are we increasing the number of hospitals, but within those hospitals, we can be increasing the number of the number of doctors that we have. And within those doctors' practices, we can also be increasing the number of patients each doctor is using our technology on. So we can have a very rapid exponential growth of sales at that point, which then puts us in a position to expand across national networks in the United States and indeed internationally across the globe. We have these current 8 hospitals are our clinical trial partners in the United States. You can see here, for example, Mass General, which is affiliated with Harvard. So we have Harvard, Cleveland Clinic, Duke, Temple, Cedars. These are the biggest and best brand names in the United States. We're very excited to have their support to be conducting our clinical trials, but it's also worth noting that the economic opportunity in just that small number of hospitals is really very significant. So these hospitals are on average about 10 times bigger than the average hospital in the United States. And so that really also shows that there is a substantial economic opportunity as well as the reputational opportunity that we're investing in by dealing with these sites. We have a very large range of opportunities for increased growth in the company. We can continue to improve our products, allowing us to get greater revenue per use of the product. We can deploy completely new products onto our existing platform. We are working by expecting to have reimbursement by FY23, which will once again see a dramatic uptick in the use of the product, and we can expand our product out from the United States, initially into Australia and New Zealand over the next year or two, and then across the globe. COVID-19 provides very substantial challenges for every business at this moment in time, and it provides turbulence and headwinds for 4DMedical. However, at the same time, it also provides for us as a lung diagnostic company, and with what we think is the world's best lung diagnostic technology, a significant tailwind. We already have incredible interest in the use of the technology to deliver specifically for COVID-19 patients, and that's something that we're vigorously pursuing. As we deliver across the plan that I've laid out to you over the last half hour or so, I think you can see that you can expect to hear from us quite regularly as we make deliveries against these efforts, as we do our soft launch, as we launch our product in the US market, as we secure contracts with key customers initially in that US market, and also as we expect to release in the first instance the first 4 clinical trials in the first year, with many more clinical trials following. These will not only support our use with our customers, with doctors as they see this evidence, but will also help our investors to see the progression of the technology in its use case. We'll then continue to roll out that product out through Australia, New Zealand, and then across the rest of the world. We'll start doing clinical trials for our vascular product, initially in the US, then in Australia and New Zealand, and then we'll be able to have those products approved by the FDA, the TGA in Australia, and regulators across the globe. And then we'll be able to take, starting from one product in one market, out to multiple products across the entire planet. So in summary, we have a clinically validated product approved by the FDA, very significant $31 billion global market opportunity, a model that is both capital light for us as the supplier and also capital light with no upfront capex for the customer. The platform allows for rapid expansion of new products. We have established relationships with the best brand names in the world. We've dug a very deep and very wide moat. We have fantastic operating leverage, and we've got a fantastic board and team to help make sure all of this happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Looking for a new list on Friday, that is the 7th of August. A few questions have come through as you've been speaking. You did touch on the defensibility of the company, and as you said, there's been many years of unmatched medical research, a lot of money spent on these trials, and at least a few years ahead of others, in your own words. So there's high barriers of entry to the market. The global respiratory market, I may add, is worth around $45 billion, and you're expected to list a valuation of $200 million. So people are very excited by that. The question has been asked, would the company be attractive to majors in terms of acquiring, given the large market opportunity? Obviously, it's early days, but we thought we'd put it to you.
Yeah, look, I think that we're working really very hard to ensure that if majors really do want access to this technology, the only way that they can, or the most cost-effective way for them to get access to that technology, is to come to us. So whether that's licensing agreements or acquisition, I think that we've done a great job of building a forest of patents, great connectivity to the customers, a huge amount of literature published out there, so that now I think, and we'll continue to strengthen all of that. In fact, we have a fully qualified patent attorney full-time on staff in the company. So we'll continue to build that defensibility so that the majors do have to come to us if they want access to this technology. That will be by far the most cost-effective way for them to do it.
You got FDA approval to start marketing your product back in May, I believe. Does your test fit into the existing US reimbursement code? That's a viewer question that's popped up just then. Or is this a potential milestone or news event for future months or years to come?
So we've been working very hard to dig in at an actuarial level to really see where scans are being used from competing or existing legacy products in the marketplace, how hospitals use those, and where they fit into the current parts of the market, whether it's, for example, under DRG or under bundled healthcare, or where it sits under reimbursed healthcare. And we can see a really very significant opportunity for us, whereby we can easily take the company through to significant revenues and through to profitability before we get to that reimbursement. And the reimbursement will, in fact, be something that is a few years out ahead of us, but the company will be, that won't hold the company back from getting forward to profitability. And then once that reimbursement comes in, then that will, fill in the other half of the market, that we will have access to about half initially, and then with reimbursement, we'll get access to that other half.
Thanks very much, Andreas. I'm sure everyone watching at home is eagerly awaiting that listing on Friday morning, something to look forward to during lockdown. Up next at 12:15 p.m, we have Atomo, which is a medical device company. They'll be up soon. Obviously, you can register through the chat box that has just popped up, or you can go onto the website and register via there. Thank you.